Dear participants, welcome. We are very happy that you are just on time for our materials of landing workshop. We will give just 1 or 2 minutes for other people to join before we start the whole presentation. Okay. Okay, we'll start with the introductory module and welcome and thank you for joining the Seeds of Bravery Materials Soft Landing Workshop as a part of market discovery initiative that we have in our activity line. My name is Anastasia Lubisheva. I'm a program development manager at Vacuum Deep Tech Acceleration and task lead for this materials soft landing workshop. I will be a moderator today and present the Seeds of Bravery opportunities for those of you who might not know yet about it. First that I wanted to say is that the Materials of Landing workshop is brought to you by Vacuum Deep Tech Acceleration team with the support of Plug and Play Tech Center, Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, Access Big, and DLA Piper. All of our partners of the consortium gathered together to do this workshop for you, specifically for our startups, for our entrepreneurs, scientific members to open up the materials world, how it is operated on the European landscape, and to help you grow and scale your products. A few words about our agenda. So we have 4 key blocks that will cover our workshop. It will be around 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. So first we'll start with Alejandro Nieto, Senior Ventures Analyst in New Materials and Packaging at Plug and Play. He'll be talking about navigating the European materials landscape, about the megatrends and startup use cases, very, very practical part of our workshop. Later, after the Alejandro, we'll have 2 colleagues from DLA Piper. They're senior associates, legal experts in chemicals industry, Jorian Hamster and Hauke Tammer. And they will tell you all about how to understand the legal and regulatory essentials in materials and be efficient with your startup scaling in this field. After that, we will have a real-life conversation with one of the founders, Ukrainian founders who knows how to scale and how to grow their business internationally. It's Yulia Beletska, co-founder and CEO at SLab, and we will explore what growth strategies worked for them in the materials industry. And last but not least, we'll have Antonis Politis, a senior business development manager at EAT Raw Materials, and he will help you explore the opportunities that are available in raw materials, including different grant programs and financial support. So stay with us. You are always welcome to, I'll tell it later, but you're always welcome to type your questions in the chat box. We have the Q&A box, and our experts will be happy to answer them. This workshop is recorded and will be available on YouTube for you to come back to these materials, to run through them. And of course, to all of the registered participants, we will share the presentation of each expert afterwards, so you'll have a direct access to it. Okay, a few words about the Seeds of Bravery, because this is the initiative that brought us all together. It's a 20 million project funded by the European Union under the EIC, and its aim is to support tech startups, bringing them closer to the European Union. So all the activities organized as a part of Seeds of Bravery, it's about scaling Ukrainian tech, deep tech startups to the worldwide to the EU and other markets, and helping you understand, navigate these markets and grow your projects, your innovative startups on the international scale. This is the consortium, so it's not a one-party organizing all of that. It's actually 17 organizations and 2 associated partners from various fields of operation who are working together in order to help you achieve your goals and scale. We have 5 key programs here, and I think that plenty of you know that there is a financial aid and there is a non-financial support that Seeds of Bravery provides. So as per our projects, for now, we have the last deadline application at the end of January. So on the 27th of January, it's the last open call to receive the financial aid. So if you're still thinking and considering applying, please apply, because you have a great chances to become a part of this huge ecosystem and grow with it. I want to focus a little bit more about the open opportunities and other initiatives that we have here. In order to access them, please follow our social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, because we are posting a lot of open to public events, different materials that will help you grow even without being a part of the project kicks, right? And this will really help you expand and explore opportunities that are available. As I already mentioned, we have a Q&A chat in our Zoom, and we'll be happy if you can write all of your questions here so that our workshop would be interactive and practical for you. And it's my huge pleasure to introduce you to our first panelist. It's Alejandro Nieto. He's a senior venture analyst in new materials and packaging plug and play. And the topic that we invited Alejandro to introduce today is navigating the European materials landscape, megatrends and startup use cases. Alejandro, I'm stopping sharing the screen and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. So I'll share my screen here. You can see it, right?
That's perfect. Yes.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Anastasia and Seeds of Bravery, for bringing me here. It's my pleasure to kick off this workshop. My name is Alejandro Nieto. I've been part of the ventures team at Tag and Play for more than 2 years now, working for the new materials and packaging vertical, which is located in Silicon Valley, in California, in the US. And today, as you see in the lineup, I'm going to talk about the European materials landscape and some startups in the field, some trends, and even some use cases. This is the agenda for my topic. So I'll be starting with the purpose and scope of this presentation, then the importance of materials innovation in the European continent. Next up, I'll give some context on how geopolitics and megatrends affect the adoption of materials innovation. After that, I will review some of the specific spaces Plug and Play is focused on right now, giving the support and help needed to scale up and settle in different industries like circular materials or energy storage materials. This will be followed by some slides on market evolution, highlighting some innovation hotspots in Europe and what could be considered the drivers of success for those startups in the sector. And I'll be wrapping up with some conclusions and takeaways and the Q&A part, so the audience and I can discuss further the topic. So to start on, why is it important to talk about materials in the European context? What is the purpose of this presentation? So I hope that with this, you can discover some emerging trends and promising startups in the European material sector. Also have a better understanding of Europe's position in the global materials innovation race. Another takeaway would be identifying key areas for investment and development in the material science sector, as Plug and Play is one of the most active investors in the world. Then learning how materials innovation can drive European industrial competitiveness to match other regions like North America or Asia. And last but not least, to understand the role of advanced or alternative materials in achieving Europe green objectives as the climate goals for 2030 or 2050. So to start on, some of the biggest industries in Europe and the rest of the world are highly dependent on material science development, such as construction, chemicals, paints, or any manufacturing industry that you can think about. In this case, I'd like to put the construction example, which value in the European market is higher than 2 trillion euros. So the valuation of all these markets and the climate goals that the European Union has set are considered the main drivers for the material innovation to enable high value manufacturing across multiple sectors and to enhance the European technological competitiveness. So all this innovation, as I said, must be aligned with the climate neutrality goals. And in the related to that, in the right of the screen, you can see a graph that shows the funding for materials application that's been spent by region. So you can see here that North America is leading that in that sense, but worth to mention that I couldn't add the graph here because I wanted to focus on materials, but for sustainability or climate tech goals, Europe is the region deploying more funding. So considering those two funding data, this can be the way to transform material science from a technical discipline to a strategic innovation driver in that sense. So to give a bit of context on the European current situation on critical materials or critical minerals, Europe mainly relies on different suppliers, as China for rare earth elements or magnesium in this case. This exposes European industries to geopolitical risk and supply disruption. So one of the European Union's goals for next year is to achieve larger amounts of raw materials by local extraction, processing, and recycling of those materials. So again, on the right side of the screen, you can see a picture that shows the different elements and materials that are at risk due to these supply chain dependencies and from other regions, and also the applications where they are used for. So, for example, in red, we have the rare earth elements. The light and the heavy ones are used for wind application, traction motors, and then other metals like magnesium, niobium, germanium that are used in multiple applications such as 3D printing, drones, robotics, photovoltaics. So here you can see a list of like critical metals that probably are not the most common ones or the most known, but are key again for different applications that you can see here on the right. So right now there are many policies related with this that the European Union has kicked off. So EU Green Deal, Critical Raw Materials Act, the Circular Economy Action Plan. So all those are pointing out that we need a change in this region to assure that our supply chain is well covered for the near future for those startups and also larger players in the sector. Sorry. So after after some research that we've done in the team on new materials, these are the main trends shaping the established corporates innovation plan. So we at Plug and Play collaborate with some of the biggest corporates in the world in the material sector. So after like discussing with them and seeing like what are their interest, these like the 6 big topics that we've seen recurrently as like being broad topics that we could cover. So first up, sustainability transformation. That's probably one of the most common ones in not just materials, but any other industry. So looking for greener technologies, like in this case, specifically reducing steps in multiple processes, or going to a more detailed example, like substituting pollutant solvents in order to apply green chemistry principles. Then supply chain resilience, again, reduce the dependency on single source countries like China. Circular economy acceleration, in order to increase recycling rates of those materials at their end life. Green technology investments with funding for European Union-based projects aligned with those sustainable goals that the EU has set. Strategic autonomy, so it's related with those policies Europe has been adopting recently that I mentioned. And finally, digital innovation that would help to predict and enhance the different process to reduce time and money spent. For example, digital twins is something that is really trendy right now. In the next section, I want to talk about these different key areas that the new materials and packaging team has considered as like really trendy for startups and also for those corporate partners. So in a specific, like those 6 before are like really broad, as I said, but these one are like more specific, and it's kind of hard sometimes to find what our corporate partners are looking for, even it's an interest for us as an earlier stage investor. So firstly, we have the circular materials trend that obviously comes from the circular economy topic, which I assume most of you are familiar with. So that's a system that aims to minimize the disposal by reusing resources and materials in a continuous loop. Focusing on sustainability and reducing waste generation. So it was introduced in 2015 by the European Union, seeking an efficient and sustainable use of resources and a new integrated model of production, distribution, and consumption. So a fact that I'm proud to share is that Plug and Play's database, in Plug and Play's database, more of the 50% of the startup register related to this circular materials topic are based in Europe, which is a good sign of the funding opportunities those projects are getting to scale up and grow, and also the demand from those technologies to be to have a greater presence in our database is due to the request from more and more corporate partners to collaborate with these kind of startups. So the subcategories inside this topic are the following ones. So we when we do like an in-depth analysis, we like to have these categories in order to provide value to our corporate partners and also internally, and also for these presentations. So recycling technologies would be the first one, waste to resource, sustainable production, regenerative and nature-based, circular designs, and digital and IoT. So the dynamics for this section is going to be like some data and some definitions and how Plug and Play categorize these kind of topics, and then some examples. So here you can see, to illustrate a bit what I said. So these are two startups in the European region doing a really great job. Both are on the Series A stage. Traces in Germany, working with agri-waste to be turned into a biomaterial for many different applications, as you can see here, packaging, coatings, films, adhesives. And then Sire is working on a textile-to-textile recycling process, as you can see at the bottom of this slide. So here's also an example that you can see that for circular materials, there are like two different approaches. On the right, you can see an approach more on the fashion brand or textile application, and then on the left, more in order to replace these single-use plastics or single-use products. So this is like how different could be one topic when it comes to serve corporate partners or investment purposes. Next one, a little bit of story. When I joined Plug and Play, I thought, why is the packaging term in the name of the vertical? So new materials and packaging is the name. So a few days later, I will know if it was like one or two, I realized why the packaging market is really, really huge. Like if you think about anything, like even for consumers or different enterprises, when you need anything from other region, other part of the world that you expect to receive, it's contained somewhere. So that's how big. I mean, it's like really simple, but it helps you to understand how big this market could turn, and also how big the different the different innovation sections could turn into a market. So in this case, advanced packaging is one of the main ones that we are looking right now. It focuses on intelligent, sustainable, and multifunctional packaging. Intelligent, sustainable, and multifunctional packaging solutions that go beyond this traditional containment and transportation method. So in Europe, it's constantly growing. The data I have is from 2023. It was like more than 30 billion euros. And in Europe, the advanced packaging landscape is characterized by a strong research community, but limited commercial but they have limited commercial packaging services. So that creates a gap between the needs of European small and medium enterprises and available local services. So again, categories here are firstly, reusable packaging, supply chain packaging protection, smart packaging, alternative materials, and digital printing are some of the ones that we've reviewed recently. This is the slide that pop up. So here you can see an example of advanced packaging specific on the smart packaging space. So they are basically more on the digital side. So you can see here a QR code, so customer like more customer engagement. So not just like to illustrate that not just hardware solutions are seen in the material space. So we have here like some software parts that can help different technologies and industries to grow up and also get the traction needed. So this startup from Switzerland, they are on Series B stage. They are doing a really great job. They already engage conversation with some of our corporate partners. Related to that, on the right of the slide, we can see some use cases or case studies that we've seen in the advanced packaging sector. So Cruise Foam, that is one of our portfolio companies, and then Reusables, a really great startup that we have a really good relationship with. They are working with these large corporates. First up, Cruise Foam is working on insulated shipping container, and then reusable packaging for Uber Eats is what the Reusable is offering. So here you can see that the options are endless sometimes in order to collaborate, and with the plug and play platform is really easy to start getting the traction needed to scale up and grow. Next topic, so carbon neutral and negative materials. So in the case of carbon neutral materials, they are defined as those that have net zero carbon footprint in their manufacturing process, and the carbon negative materials go a step further. So they are removing more CO2 from the atmosphere than they emit. The EU estimates that between 400 and 500 million tons of CO2 equivalents will need to be removed annually if we want to achieve that greenhouse neutrality by 2050. And in giving like some specific information, the construction industry, that is another, we have another vertical focus on that, is increasingly adopting this type of materials, carbon neutral and negative, so to reduce its environmental impact, as it's one of the most pollutant sectors in the world. So the four categories that you see below are probably the most pollutant ones that are like looking for this kind of alternatives. So construction on building materials, heavy transport, plastics, and then agnostic, that will include those materials that could work for like multiple applications and other applications that are not that as pollutant as this one. So to give an example, Payable from Sweden, with more than 30 million raised, they are working in this space with carbon negative materials that are made from CO2, so they can create this sustainable and durable building material that can turn those structures into carbon sinks. So on the right, you can see the two different routes that they have for manufacturing this kind of materials, and one of them is using direct air capture technology. So it's kind of interesting to see this type of graph, so you can understand like how climate tech intensive is something when it comes to reduce the emissions. Continuing with research management, that is another hot topic that we have screened. So it is defined as this process of planning, allocating and optimizing the use of various resources, including time, equipment, money, people, and obviously materials. So it can achieve specific objectives efficiently and effectively. So in the context of critical materials, the EU has set some targets for 2030 that will include sourcing 10% of critical raw materials locally, processing 40%, within the EU, deriving 25% from recycled material. So these three categories are the one that we've been requested more, and also that we think could have a high interest for the near future. That would be water resiliency, process optimization, and critical materials that we've seen something at the beginning of the presentation. So to give a more clear example, Flowsan was incorporated last year, but they already raised 9 million and reached the Series A stage. They are working on water treatment and desalination, and they are doing a great job, and they have like some trusted partners that help them prove that their technology is scalable. And to give you like more information on how Plug and Play goes in depth with this analysis and like seeing how interesting could be a topic for ourselves and also our corporate partners, apart from the resource management topic, and then the other three that we have these subsections that help us to understand better how a startup can provide some value to different potential customers. So here in monitoring, we look for sensors, IoT, or data analysis startups, then treatment with membranes, that probably is the highest, the most related with new materials. And then potability, like in this case, that's desalination for those regions at risk to not having sanitation water. Continuing with energy storage materials that obviously are those capable of storing energy in different forms. The five that we found are the ones at the bottom. So electrochemical, thermal, mechanical, chemical, and electrical. Sorry. The European energy storage market was valued last year at more than 100 billion and is expected to grow at a CAGR of more than 14%. So it's something that it's a market that's going to grow and grow. We expect more innovation in this sense, and these materials will play a vital role in integrating renewable energy sources, improving grid scalability, and enhancing overall energy efficiency across different sectors like residential, commercial, and industrial. In this case, I want to highlight Up Catalyst from Estonia. They are working on producing nanomaterials and graphite from CO2 emissions. So their aim is to capture more than 200,000 tons of CO2 annually that will we transform into 60,000 tons of carbon negative material. So in this case, this could be considered both a carbon negative material and an energy storage material due to its application. So it's something really funny that happens sometimes, being like part of a really broad vertical as the new materials one. So you can see that some startups could overlap in different categories. On the right side, we have this graph with different energy storage solutions and their capacity. So if a startup or corporate is working on like improving their energy storage solutions, or are like looking for how different could be depending on the discharging time that they are looking, and also the maximum capacity, this is an interesting graph to look at when it comes to this kind of enhancing their productivity. So to end up with this section, we have materials for electronics, which are specialized to enhance that performance and functionality of electronic devices. That will include insulators, conductors, semiconductors. The European semiconductor materials market expected to reach more than 7 billion by 2030. That's in dollars. And apart from the material discovery with AI that recently popped up from Microsoft, I think it's a huge news, and also like all the things that comes to AI development, it also is related to the materials development. So AI specific chips are predicted to achieve sales of more than $400 billion by 2027. So that would highlight the crucial role of specialized semiconductors in this advancing artificial intelligence technology. So the need for those alternative materials in the space it's really key, because those main metals and alloys used for these applications are obviously limited. So the alternative that we've studied for these are bio-based materials, graphene, and other metals and alloys that probably could be more available to use it as semiconductors, then organic and flexible materials, and bioplastics. Here I want to highlight another European startup from Germany. It's called Black Semiconductor. They recently raised the great amount of money of more than 200 million. That's from government funds. And they are using graphene-based semiconductors that enable ultra-fast, energy-efficient, and scalable chip connectivity. So they are set to establish Europe's first mass production facility for graphene-based semiconductors. So they will be able to achieve milestone scaling production capacity and meeting those growing industry demands. So also another thing that you can see on the right of the screen is the structures for those alternatives that are proposed on scientific literature. In the end, I'm a material scientist, and I love to put these kind of images in the slides. So gallium nitride or silicon carbide are some of the substitutes. Are obviously graphene that you probably have heard about, and carbon nanotubes. So this picture is really cool because you can see with the same atom and different dispositions and setups, you can get different properties and approaches for what it takes to become like a good material for semiconductor. Moving now to the market evolution section. So here you can see a map of Europe that shows some projects that with different technologies that have received public funding from the European Union, which was around 3 billion euros. Most of them have a focus on climate tech solutions, as you can see in the legend, in specific construction, chemicals, and manufacturing for renewable energy solutions are the most funded projects in this initiative, with Nordic countries, Germany and Spain, with the most projects backed by the EU. So all those industries represent more than 12% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the European landscape. So that makes sense for that they are kind of the target market to reduce their emissions, with a variety of proposals in this space. So this is really interesting. I would say that for startups, projects, or even academia to see these kind of opportunities to receive funds from EU and also governments to start developing their innovation that could get the attention from those established corporations that are looking to collaborate with them. I know that it can be redundant, but in the end, most of the success of these new technologies being implemented by large companies depends on being aligned with sustainability goals and being economically viable. So again, those policies that the EU has established recently would be the ones that I'd stick to if I were a founder, if I were a CEO. So being aware of that is really important in order to not step out of the road. Also responding to market needs, which means evaluating what are the sectors that are demanding more innovation related to material side. Then the energy transition is something that we are experiencing right now. So there's increased demand for energy storage innovations, as we saw. So solid state and sodium-ion batteries are right now really trendy for EV and renewable energy solutions. There's also appearing more eco-conscious consumers. So there's a preference for sustainable and recyclable products. So it's pressuring some industries like packaging or electronics to adopt greener materials. Then obviously corporates need to meet those ESG benchmarks for next years. And there's I would say that there's a huge economic growth potential if innovation is being driven by all players in the scene. So governments, universities, large corporations, startups, consumers, and so on. And yeah, as you've seen from the market value, some of technologies that I presented today are predicted to reach multi-billion dollar industries. within the next decade. And on the right, just to give an example, you can see the prediction on electricity production for the next 25 years, or from 2012 to 2050. So we can see the reduction on fossil fuels that obviously must come with the development of alternative materials that have enough availability to match the amount of energy generated. So it's obvious for those energy generators to demand alternative energy storage materials as the energy generator is going to increase and increase. So there's here also some challenges to this transition. So again, supply chain of those materials is key. So localizing and diversifying the sourcing, but scaling up domestic production and processing remains a challenge. On the left, you can see a graph that represents one of the biggest challenges for early stage companies, which is scaling up while developing a technology and improving it at the same time that they are delivering their product or their services to the customers. And receiving funding, I would say, is essential for a startup, but most in the hardware space, so that the materials is where it's located. And yeah, transitioning to new materials often requires retooling manufacturing processes, which can be costly for industries. And there's the competition from other regions, such as North America, Asia, that might be receiving more attention and funds from their governments and from investors. Then compliance with regulations in the EU is something that can slow commercialization and availability of some innovation pieces trying to enter the market. And finally, there are some technologies that apart from what I said, that there are more eco-conscious consumers, there could struggle with understanding and being really eager to adopt these new habits. So the commitment to churn for new types of products in different markets comes from every actor in this scene. So I'd love to get an open discussion about this. And also, I didn't want to take that much time on my end, but I wanted to wrap up with some conclusions from what I presented today. So firstly, strong policy frameworks, rising demand, and increased funding make now the ideal time to invest in Europe's material sectors. Early movers who could be startups or research project will benefit from growing markets such as energy, packaging, or carbon neutral technologies. We've seen with this European map that it's something that's going to grow and grow, and also getting the attention from other investors, even from other regions. For these early stage companies, the challenges would be high costs, regulatory hurdles, global supply chain risk that will require collaboration to overcome. So startups need that support from corporations, governments, and academia to scale innovations effectively. There are probably endless possibilities across the different applications. So there are diverse needs across those sectors that I already mentioned, energy, packaging, electronics, that will create vast innovation opportunities. So some material solutions tailored to a specific application can unlock significant value and new markets to be applied on. So if you're a startup and you think that your product just has only one market to go for, just take a step back, because there's probably another application that just with a minimal modification could be used for many different things. Then there's the role of universities and research. I haven't mentioned this during the presentation, but I wanted to include it here. I was in academia really recently, and I think it's really important for European universities to keep pushing and keep supporting these spin-outs that are proposing really interesting technologies that could be key to global competitiveness in the specific from Europe. So stronger connections between academia and industry will accelerate probably the commercialization of those groundbreaking ideas. Then the thing that I think I repeated more today, reducing dependency on suppliers. So securing that local supply chain and recycling system is crucial for Europe to get a strategic autonomy. Also, this will minimize the risk from geopolitical tensions and also ensure sustainable access to critical materials. And then I'd like to finish with proposing a unified commitment needed that is like a national governments must align with EU initiatives to fund and drive the material transition collectively. So I've seen some startups just getting like EU funds or even so like just government funds. So it's something that if we push for those spaces to get like the same amount or like same push from those different institutions would be ideal, I would say. So a coordinated approach is essential to meet those climate goals and maintaining Europe's leadership in materials innovation. So that's it from my end. I'd love to answer some questions. I know we have the Q&A box here, so if you want to ask anything, feel free to do it. We have, I think, 10 minutes, if I'm not wrong, 10, 15 minutes. So happy to do it, or anything that you want to discuss or to share on thoughts. Happy to take those.
Alejandro, I will help you with the questions if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Okay.
The first question would be, what steps is the EU taking to reduce reliance on external sources of critical raw materials?
So I was trying to read them out. Can you repeat, please?
Sure. Do you want to stop sharing your screen or?
Yeah, sure. Wait.
Wonderful. The question is, what steps is the EU taking to reduce reliance on external sources of critical raw materials?
Yeah, so as he said, the first one is providing more funding to those projects. And it not just could be those not just comes from the startup side, also like larger companies with well-established proposals and yeah, like large capacities are receiving the attention from that. So those projects, so for example, I remember Scilib, there is a startup based in Europe that are recycling batteries. They got like a really huge amount of funding pretty recently because they Europe, like in this case European Union, knows that in order to get ahead of like China, sorry, supply chain dependency, it's key to get that funds to this kind of project. So I would say that the funding opportunity and then these kind of things is it could be like those small things also, like not just the big amounts. There are sometimes that for, I don't know, semiconductors, chips, and so on, the amount needed are like super small in terms of grams. So in any case, if we can recover those from existing electrical waste and so on, could be really interesting. So apply that, or like giving the support from the corporate side, it's something that I will look on. So funding from the EU is one of the main things, and then another one is like looking for those small spaces that could be also crucial to to supply new products in that space. That I would say electronics is something really demanding right now.
Thank you for such a sufficient answer. The next question is, what opportunities does the next generation EU funding provide for businesses in the clean tech ecosystem? Maybe you can advise something.
So to be honest, I am not familiar specifically with Next Generation EU. I mean, I know them. I know what's their high level work. So yeah, I would say that I'm not super familiar with those. Again, for this presentation, I really looked into our database in the European sector, but I serve mostly for the US. But I'm European, so I would like to have a really strong market here. But I would say that for Next Generation EU, it's kind of similar in the sense of what I like following those policies that the US has promoted. So in order to reduce the supply chain dependency, then increase the recycling rates and also reduce the greenhouse emissions. So if you're aligned, I'm guessing right now, so if you're aligned with any of those objectives that the EU has set for the next 10, 20, 30 years, I would say that that would be also something to get the opportunity from this institution that you mentioned.
One participant is asking, maybe you know, what does the Traceless use to make its plant-based materials?
So basically I met them a while ago, but as I said during the presentation, so mainly what they do is, from what I remember, they were like doing these kind of films, those films that protect the food for touching the container. So that's mainly based out of plastic. If you have ever like bought any kind of food contained in a supermarket or so on, it's like made of plastic. So that's their proposal, like this kind of film that protects the food to not touch or be in contact with the container. That was their main one, but in the end, it's like their biomaterial has like a lot of possibilities. So it wasn't just on a form of film, but yeah, happy to discuss further with them. And something that we do at Plug and Play is like making introduction with any of the startups that you might have an interest in collaborating with. So happy to share those contact details, because that's our main job here, like introducing early stage companies with other early stage companies, or even corporations, or any type of player out there that could help them or could benefit from the interaction.
And that was actually my next question. How can the startups, Ukrainian startups from the material field, can engage with you and collaborate, and how your domain, how your expertise can help them with scaling, with growth? Maybe you can touch some points on how they can collaborate with you and Plug and Play.
So like I thought when I joined Plug and Play, that was a really smart move for them to get a ventures team that was integrated by different tech experts, because in the end, when it comes to early stage companies, to analyze, main thing is the team, like the expertise that you feel that they can bring that opportunity to the mature level. And yeah, after, like, apart from that is the technology. So the technology makes sense as something that is very unique and has the traction needed, and also the valuable position of being a need for many, could be a really huge market, or different markets that have a really strong position. So that's some things that we look when we are analyzing a startup. So in my case, in order to support those, when I'm like talking to a startup at the beginning, is that really understanding what is their value, like the unique value proposition. And if I think it's really good, but they're probably not selling okay, I would try to shape that in a different way. And but yeah, I mean, there's probably just a few times that I think there wasn't like really interesting ideas out there. Probably they're not. There are sometimes that they're not as good as they think, or like they're not at as their like TRL that they think. So they're like ready to go commercial in 6 months, and it's not even close, because in order to get the attention and also the technology readiness at the right level, Plug and Play could help them in order to get that traction, and also get these validation from the industry experts that are, for example, in our case, working with PepsiCo, could help you in a deeper way to really understand what is your next step for your technology.
Thanks. I think that would be useful for our participant to understand how they can engage with you and advance their startups. And the last question that no, actually, we just added one more. But one of the questions, Alejandro, could you advise us on the resources that might be useful for tracking trends in materials industry? Is there something that you use that you might share with our founders?
So sometimes for scientific in the industry is like hard because it's like you read on the media or you read on scientific papers, so it's like super far away. So I would recommend you be in touch with industry experts that have like the knowledge. Probably on VC, it's interesting, but also like incubators that work with spin-outs and so on. But yeah, mainly reading. I mean, LinkedIn is a super useful tool, and the even like the search engine, it could be helpful sometimes. But in my case, it's just mostly newsletter and also like different like specifically on materials. It's hard to find like something really specific. It's more on the climate tech probably or manufacturing. So I will go there, and probably you have to filter like every 20 different news you can find 2 or 3 that are related really on the material side. So it's something that I would look into. But yeah, newsletter, be in contact with people that probably will tell you like, oh, like I receive, I don't know, offers from 5 startups in this space related with materials. So that's when you can start to think, okay, this could be like a trend. And then you ask like, I don't know, different industry experts in different sectors, packaging, chemistry, or something like that, that they would say, okay, yeah, we're looking for this right now, because in the next, I don't know, 2-3 years will be demanding from government. So it's just keeping up on like being up to date on many different things. But newsletter, LinkedIn, even scientific researchers could be a really good starting point.
Do you have your own personal like star expert that you're reading on LinkedIn that you would advise us?
So the ones I really like are EIT. Raw materials is one of the ones that they're
We
like.
will have the speaker from EIT later
Yeah,
on today.
yeah, that's one of the ones. And then Hello Tomorrow, they launch they're a VC that they launched an acceleration program, yeah. I think it was last year on materials specifically. So since then I've been in touch with them to know like how do they shape it and so on. We already have an accelerator program, but I like to like be up to date what other people is doing, and knowing how they approach that and how do they see like the different categories that they're going to adopt for that new cohort.
Thank you for sharing the insights. And the last question would be from Max from Recap Green. He's writing, we are a tech startup in the field of sorting single-use packaging. Could you advise on the potential grant providers?
So I'm assuming you're based in Europe. So I would say that also in the digital space, there are a lot of opportunities in there. So I mean, you could go in my thoughts like here, like I would need to do some research, but I would say that there's the option for you to apply for those sustainability grants that might appear on the EU sector, but also on the digital side, as you are like shorting that single-use packaging. I'm assuming that you are using some kind of sensor, camera, or so on, or even like a software, or even AI for that. So I think that would be really interesting for you, not just looking into the climate tech or grant option, but also in the digital side. That could be also really interesting, because I've seen, for example, like crypto or blockchain different grants or prices that in the end they added like 1 or 2 on the climate tech, obviously for emissions reasons. So I think that's the good point for us, that we can make the most out of those, trying to greenwash different like different contests and prices and grants. So when they need to have 1 climate tech or 2 climate tech startups in their next cohort for grants, it's could be valuable for us to get like 1 or 2 startups in there, because in the end the benefit, the high benefit will be for you. So I will try that.
Alejandro, thank you very much for your time and expertise and all the insight that you brought today to our workshop. We really appreciate that on behalf of Seeds of Bravery and all of our participants. Would it be, if we would have to reach out to you, all of some of our participants, what would be the best channel to reach out to you with questions?
Yeah, so I have my LinkedIn. You look for my name, I have the same picture as here. So happy to connect on LinkedIn. I mean, materials is my passion, so happy to discuss further and happy to help anyone that might need it. I mean, I'm just learning as you guys, so thank you for having me here. And apart from that, happy to share my contact details on the chat next up. So if anyone has an interest on like collaborating with Plug and Play and knowing more, happy to also discuss it.
Thank you, Alejandro, for your time. Have a great evening. And dear participants, we are moving forward. And right now we will have a presentation by two of our experts. We'll have Jorian Hamster and Hauke Tammer, Senior Associates, Legal Experts in Chemicals Industry, DLA Piper. And they will tell you how to understand legal and regulatory essentials and frameworks in materials. So, Jorian, Hauke, the floor is yours. Stop sharing the screen and
yeah, hi everyone. As said, my name is Hauke Tammer. I'm a lawyer with DLA Piper. I'm a regulatory lawyer with a specific focus on environmental law and also product compliance. So a big portion of my work is helping manufacturers with product compliance with EU laws, as well as helping non-EU manufacturers that intend to enter into the EU market. So I share my presentation, and we split our session. So Jorian will join later on because we tackle the topics from two slightly different angles to give you some broader perspective. Jorian, do you want to introduce yourself, or when you start speaking?
I'll leave the floor to you for now, Hauke.
Okay.
I'll do it later.
So what I want to do discuss with you in the next couple of 15-20 minutes are the following parts. So first of all, I want to give you a very brief and high-level overview of the EU product law framework, and then on some specifics in terms of EU market access. And a particular focus will be on materials and restrictions relating to chemicals as they relate to product compliance. Then I will touch upon risks in terms of non-compliance and setting up a mechanism to ensure compliance. And I will end my presentation with some outlook as to what are coming and current hot topics in the space, and what's to expect in the next couple of months and years. So starting right off with a very high level explanation on the general EU product law framework. So what's called the new legislative framework was an idea of the EU to set up a general product EU product law framework. So the idea of the EU was to set up a framework with the elements that are required for an effective conformity assessment of products, for accreditation, for example, for third parties and laboratories and notified bodies, as well as setting up the general principles for market surveillance in the product compliance framework. So the idea was back in the day to set up a EU product law framework that has the basic requirements for the products, as opposed to govern all the specifics of any kind of product. The idea was rather that the EU sets up the general requirements that products need to comply with, and then in different acts some further specified requirements for certain categories of products. But how to achieve these safety requirements is to a large extent up to the manufacturer itself. But the framework is set in a way that that manufacturers can use their own views and visions on how to achieve certain safety aspects of the products. The great benefit of this framework is that within the EU market we have a largely harmonized product law space. So it means that that if you comply, if your product complies with the EU requirements, you can market it within the EU. There are very little specifics in terms of the single member states within the EU. There are some in terms of labeling or language requirements, but the basic product requirements are basically harmonized within the EU. So that's that's a benefit of the framework here in the EU, that the product can float freely within the EU. Another aspect in terms of market access that has become more relevant in the last couple of months and years is that anyone who wants to place place products on the EU market needs to have a responsible person within the EU. What does that mean? It means that there needs to be one entity within the EU that is responsible for the product. There are some obligations on this responsible person in terms of verifying some sort of documentation in terms of the products, the cooperation with market surveillance authority in Europe, and also obligations to inform the market surveillance authority in terms of risks from the product. So the basic idea was that the EU Commission wanted to get rid of products that are placed on the EU market from outside of the EU without any EU importer or distributor that can be responsible for the product. So therefore, in the last years, these obligations have been stricted through the market surveillance regulation. This market surveillance regulation applies to so-called harmonized products. That means to products where there exists some directive on EU level that sets out requirements for these products. It could, for example, be electronics products that are subject to low voltage directive. It could be products with Wi-Fi connectivity, which are subject to radio equipment directive, toys, whatsoever. And just as of December last year, the respective requirement to have a responsible person here in the EU now also applies to non-harmonized products as far as these are marketed to consumers, because as of December last year, the General Product Safety Regulation (GPSR) entered into force. What does this mean? That doesn't necessarily mean that any non-EU manufacturer has to have a subsidiary here in the EU. So there are either way to achieve this. It could be that an EU importer takes over the role. It could be that a distributor here takes over the role. So, and it also, there's a possibility that a non-EU manufacturer appoints an authorized representative here in the EU. So switching up to the sorry. So we are now getting into the material compliance requirements of products. As we're talking about materials, one of the major EU requirements is definitely REACH. REACH is, so to say, the main European framework in terms of chemicals. It sets up the requirements in terms of manufacturing, importing chemicals and substances. And the background and the aims of REACH is to achieve a high level of protection of the human health as well as the environment, but also to enable a market here in the EU where chemicals and substances can freely circulated. The general principle of REACH is no data, no market. This means that if chemicals are manufactured or imported here within the EU, the respective manufacturer must assess on the risks and file dossiers with the respective authority so that these risks can be assessed. Most of the requirements of REACH are not directly relevant for manufacturers of end products, because the main target of REACH is on substances, on mixtures themselves, but not on end products that are built from certain substances. But there are some very relevant requirements that truly apply also to the end products, and these are the so-called Annex 17 restrictions. Annex 17 restrictions sets up some substances where REACH said that that end products called articles within REACH shall not be placed on the market unless they comply with the conditions set in these annex lists. This means that as of today, there are 79 substances listed in these Annex 17, and it is not a complete ban of these substances, but the restrictions set up certain limitations in terms of their use. For example, there are limits of certain substances for certain use cases, and these limits could also differentiate based on the use of the product itself. For example, for some of these substances, the limits are much a larger amount lower if the article is intended to come into prolonged skin contact. For example, handles of a bicycle need to comply with a much lower restriction level than other products that you do not necessarily touch. And in addition, there are certain restrictions that only apply to certain product categories. There are some restrictions relating to toy, for example, some to textiles, to leather, and so on and so forth. So this means that if you're placing products on the market, it's a necessity to check on these restrictions and to ensure that the used substances ensure that the product itself comply with these restrictions. In addition to these general restrictions from REACH, there are other restrictions that only apply to certain categories of products. One example, for example, is RoHS. So that's restrictions of use of certain hazardous substances in electrical and electronic equipment. These restrictions only apply to EEE, so to electrical and electronic products. And the aim of such framework is the phasing out of certain listed substances. Here, for example, lead, mercury, cadmium, and so on. And how this works is that that the restrictions set out tolerated values by weight in so-called homogeneous materials. So, in other words, the mercury and cadmium restrictions that have a certain share of percentage of the weight of the product do not apply to the product as such, but to the smaller parts of the product that are considered homogeneous materials. There have ever been debates as to what exactly is considered such a homogeneous material, because obviously some of the manufacturers try to argue that that you need to take more of the product into account when calculating this, obviously, because this leaves more room in terms of the thresholds for phasing out. Another example for such product-specific restrictions is Toys Safety Directive, which obviously applies to toys. In terms of the particular safety requirements in the directive, it also sets out ban of certain substances. There's a restriction of some listed fragrances, and there are some specific requirements in terms of migration of certain substances. This means that if you place toys on the market, you need to set up and test the materials for some additional requirements in terms of the requirements that the lawmaker expects from the materials used. So let's talk about risks here. Why is product compliance important for anyone entering into the EU market? So the obvious one is on the left side, it's fines, but this is for non-EU entities entering into the EU market, it's not necessarily the highest risk. Let me explain you why. So fines, of course, for non-compliance with product safety requirements, with the product law requirements, there can be fines set up to the company. The amount on the respective fines are dependent on the respective EU member states. So there's not a uniform approach on this. It pretty much depends on the system of the respective member states, and it also depends on the approach of the authority whether or not they use a lot of fining the companies or not. For some of the non-compliance, for example, with the REACH restrictions, these fines can be more severe. If they are intentional, this also can result in criminal misconduct, but the majority is more administrative offense fines. But the important or higher risks in terms of non-compliance is the next one is regulatory actions and potential recall scenarios. So market surveillance authorities randomly check for product compliance, and if they come across non-compliance, they will reach out to the manufacturer or to the EU representative, and then ask for some information and to investigate the non-compliance. If the manufacturer can demonstrate that the series of the product isn't compliant, but that only this specific product is non-compliant, it might not be a huge risk, but in many cases, it turns out that some of the products from someone in the supply chain were not right, and so the whole of the series is non-compliant. And then if this presents a safety risk, the manufacturer has to initiate mitigation measures, inform authorities, dependent on the risk of the product, stop sales, withdrawal can be a consequence, or recall. And a recall here in the EU, in most of the cases, also means that there's public attention, there's a public safety gate and RAPEX system where the recalls are published, and this really can be huge and cost consuming time, especially if there is only one product, the series turns out to be non-compliant and it cannot be fixed in a short amount of time. It can have pretty huge impact on the business here in the EU. So therefore, product compliance with the safety requirement is essential when marketing products here in the market. Of course, in addition, In a recall scenario, you would also think of potential claims from within the supply chain, within the distribution chain. So your importers, your distributors come back to you, and maybe the customers have some claims. And last but not least, it can result in reputational damages. Coming to the last slide before I hand over to Jorian, is a short outlook on current hot topic and what's on the horizon. I think the latest one is maybe here, the packaging and packaging waste regulation. Alejandro also touched upon packaging here in the EU, and just today, the new packaging and packaging waste regulation was published in the official journal, and this will have a huge impact on the whole consumer market, whole product market here in the EU, because you basically have to package all your products, and the whole system in terms of the packaging and packaging waste will shift coming forward. There will be requirements to go through conformity assessment for the packaging. It also contains minimum requirement in terms of recycled content of the packaging. So this piece of regulation that just was published today will have a huge impact on the materials side here, as well as on the whole products landscape within the EU. So now I'm handing over to Jorian, who will also touch upon, I think, one of the aspects here in terms of sustainability and ESG. Stop sharing here.
Yeah, thanks, Hauke, and great to meet everyone. I'm Jorian Hamster. I'm a litigation and regulatory lawyer at DLA Piper here in Amsterdam, working together with Hauke on some issues in the past. And yeah, I'm going to talk today a bit more about sustainability regulation. Of course, you've had to work your way through already quite a bit of regulation in Hauke's presentation, and there's only going to be more in my presentation. So buckle up for more. I'm sorry about that. There's now a popular saying across the globe that the US innovates and Europe regulates. That's not entirely true. I don't agree with that statement, but there's no denying that the EU has a lot of regulations, and especially in the field of sustainability, of climate, of human rights, we've seen a massive amount of regulation in the last couple of years, all part of what has been called the European Green Deal. So yes, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity if you, as a non-EU entrepreneur trying to get access to the European markets, that access is going to be smoother and the access is going to be much more successful if you have a competitive edge on sustainability and know how to comply with all of these regulations. So that's the reason why we decided to include it in today's presentation as well. So what are we talking about when we think about ESG and sustainability challenges for businesses when it comes to materials? Well, there's a lot, just some issues to think about. Net zero, decarbonization, the climate crisis, obviously top of mind for a European regulator and for all stakeholders, etc. Essentially. Something that everyone who does business on the European markets need to work on in the coming years. Massive issue is supply chain risks, human rights issues in the supply chain, environmental issues in the supply chain, decarbonization efforts in your entire supply chain. That is really a focus point of EU regulation, and it means that you're also impacted by all of that, even if you're not accessing the European markets yourself, but you're delivering your own goods and products and services to EU companies, because then you're part of the supply chain of EU companies. So this is still going to be relevant for you. There's more. There's all the regulatory compliers. There's a lot of focus on sustainability disclosures in the EU, that you report on your greenhouse gas emissions, on your human rights efforts, etc. So that's really big. And of course, workplace safety, waste circularity. These are topics that Hauke already touched upon. There is a lot. we won't be able to discuss all of that in today's presentation. And that's the reason that we're going to focus on a couple of key trends. And there's really, if I want you to remember anything from these key trends today, and I understand you're probably not lawyers and this is really a lot to digest, but it's really what we're seeing is regulation on market access. It's you need to comply with this in order to get access to European markets. So that's really important. Then we see a key trend on sustainability due diligence. So everyone in the EU or bringing products on the EU who has a certain size needs to perform these due diligence efforts in the supply chain. As I already said, everyone is impacted by that. And then the final key trend, I'm not sure I'm going to make it to discuss that today, is the aspect of reporting and disclosures on sustainability. So let's talk about these market access regulations, and let's start with perhaps the most impactful one when we think about materials companies and when we think about non-EU participants trying to get access to European markets. Because as you may or may not know, we have an emission trading system for greenhouse gas emissions in the European Union. Which means that if you're a producer and manufacturer and you emit greenhouse gases in the EU, you need to pay a certain levy for these emission rights. Until we had CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, non-EU companies did not have such obligation because they don't fall under the European trading system. And it was felt that A, there was an unfair advantage for non-EU companies, and B, that it only actually replaced the issue, because then you would move your plant from inside the EU to outside of the EU. You no longer had the levy, but of course the carbon emissions are still there. So the idea behind this regulation is that we actually tax non-EU market participants for the amount of emissions to the same level as if they had been in the EU and would have had to pay for the emissions under the emission trading system. So this is all about leveling the playing field. What it also means is that if you are a non-EU market participant and your emissions are substantially lower than those of your competitors, that is a huge competitive advantage, because then there's less costs to be paid under the CBAM regulation, and that's directly felt in your competition. We're still in the transitional period with the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So now we only need to calculate, EU importers need to calculate and report on the imported volume of products that currently fall under the system. So far, we're only talking about cement, iron, steel, aluminium, fertilizers, electricity, and hydrogen. There's definitely talks about other materials being included in the near future, but for now, these are the products that fall under the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. And then per next year, 1 January 2026, EU importers need to declare the quantity of goods and the embedded greenhouse gas emissions in these goods, and then pay the carbon levy over these goods. And the levy we call the CBAM certificates. If there's non-compliance, you need to purchase the missing certificates, and there is a penalty for goods that have not been reported properly. And this slide shows how you're impacted by this, because it's the EU buyer or EU distributor that is going to pay for the embedded emissions, pay for the CBAM certificate, but it's the non-EU distributors or the non-EU manufacturers that will be asked to provide the emission data, and of course will also be kind of feeling the costs and the cost pressure by the fact that your product is now for the EU importer substantially more extensive because of these levies. So in any event, you will be asked to provide data, but it's also again about that competitive advantage. As I said, the timeline We're going to start in 1 January 2026, and then the scope is expected to be extended per 28-29. That's it for CBAM. Let's have a look at another materials, even though it's a slightly broader definition of materials regulation. Again, a market access regulation. If you don't comply with this regulation, your products don't get access to the European markets. So we're talking about the EU deforestation regulation, which applies to operators and traders who bring relevant commodities on the European markets. And what are the commodities? We're talking about palm, soy, wood, cacao, coffee, cattle, and rubber products. What do you need to do? You need to show evidence of where these products were produced, and not just a country, but really a very specific geolocation of the square kilometer where the cacao came from. And you need to demonstrate that it's deforestation free, and that it has complied with the legislation in the country of origin. So this is really quite tricky if you're in this line of business. There's something to really prepare for. The original entry into force was 3 weeks ago, 31st of December 2024. Under a lot of pressure from business, this has been delayed by 1 year. So if you're in this line of business, you have 1 year, but you need to make sure that these are the requirements that you comply with. Now, I'm not going to discuss the batteries regulation in full, but just another example of regulation that we see, which is really, again, the no compliance, no market access doctrine. If your batteries don't comply with these requirements, then they're not allowed on the EU markets. So what are the obligations we're talking about? Basically all batteries, so in medical devices, in electric vehicles, all of that, but also your basic household batteries. It's obligations on sustainability, obligations on safety, obligations on labeling, information requirements, etc. And there's different obligations there for the manufacturers, the importers, the distributors, and it's really the entire life cycle. We talk about the manufacturing, disposal, end of life, so there's a lot of waste and recycling obligations in this one as well. So yeah, a massive regulation if you are active in this space. And at the same time, this is of course a very interesting growth market. Batteries, we need batteries for the energy transition. But the EU has said, you know what, there's a lot of issues with batteries. There's the safety issues, there's the waste issues, human rights issues in the sense that all those materials, cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel, often come from conflict regions, etc. So very stringent information requirements, sustainability requirements, and a lot of other requirements. Forced labor regulation, I'm not going to discuss this one because it's more or less along the lines of the previous ones. No compliance, no market access. And this is for products where there is an indication that there was forced labor in the supply chain of the product. Not for a specific product, so not as deforestation for a set of products or CBAM for a set of products. Forced labor regulation is for all products that you bring on the EU markets. Now, we did discuss this a little bit already, the due diligence process for the supply chain. What am I talking about when I talk about an obligation to perform due diligence in your supply chain? It's essentially this slide, the human rights due diligence cycle, an obligation to develop policies on due diligence. Okay, but what should these policies look like? Well, it's a policy to identify and assess potential human rights impact, potential environmental impacts in your own operations, in your supply chain, and in the operations of your business relationship. And if you identify these issues, then you're under an obligation to seize and prevent and mitigate these issues. And if you've done that, you need to track whether your actions have been effective. You need to talk about what you've done. And if there's really an issue and someone's human rights have been harmed or someone is impacted through environmental damages, you need to provide for remediation to the stakeholders involved. So this is a concept that is pretty new. It's 10, 15 years old, but it's become really center stage of a whole set of EU regulations. And we see that this is particularly relevant for those active in kind of commodity heavy supply chains, or if you're talking about raw materials, minerals, mining, oil and gas, but also the commodities in the food sector, etc. Then often there is a high chance of encountering human rights or environmental issues in your supply chain. And that's why the EU has really made a big effort of trying to include this obligation to do due diligence in your human rights in your supply chain. And the key legislation that we're talking about here is the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or the CSDDD or CSDDD. It does only apply to very, very large companies, more than 450 million turnover if you're an EU company, or if you're non-EU company, 450 million net annual turnover in the EU only. So I'm not sure a lot of you are already at those amounts of turnover, not yet, but you are undoubtedly going to be in the supply chain, part of the supply chain of European companies that are under an obligation to do due diligence. And what they are going to do, these companies that need to do due diligence, is going to field a lot of questionnaires. They're going to see information from you. What are you doing on human rights? What are you doing to prevent environmental issues, etc.? If you do this well, if you make sure you have your house in order on these sustainability issues, that really makes you an attractive party to work with for these EU suppliers. Because if you're not compliant, then there is a risk that if they still instruct you, that these companies fail to do their own due diligence. So that's why it's something I did want to share with you, because it kind of it's something that will come up in your interactions with European companies going forward. The Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive is very specific, or it's general. It's for basically every company and every product, as long as the company has these certain thresholds. There's also more specific due diligence obligation. We already discussed the deforestation regulation and the batteries regulation, and if you remember, we saw some due diligence obligations in both of these regulations. There's also the EU conflict minerals regulation. It's different from the other two in the sense that it does not prohibit market access for these products, but there is a very clear due diligence obligation for EU importers of tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold. And these are some products that are, of course, they're basic raw commodities, but they're also really used in high-tech appliances. So it's an important regulation, and it's really to ensure that these products, 3TG, they're also called, are sourced responsibly by smelters and EU smelters. So again, an obligation to conduct due diligence to make sure that the minerals are sourced responsibly and do not contribute to conflict. So what is it that we see companies do? Well, we see that they, for example, and you will undoubtedly see this once you start working with some of these large European multinationals, they will require due diligence efforts and policies, human rights policies, etc., from their suppliers. So you will see this in the contracts. You will also see that they have very detailed supplier codes and that they require you to comply with these supplier codes. You will see that they include audit rights in your contracts, because they need to be able to audit whether or not you're compliant. They will want to see proper reporting and incident management systems, so that if something happens in your supply chain, you inform them of the activities that happen. Now, there is, of course, a risk here that a lot of this is just pushing down obligations in the supply chain. They're the supply chain leader, they're powerful, they just want you to comply with this. we're also seeing a different move here, which is that the real leaders in this space, they're starting to develop partnerships. They see you as your equal and say, okay, how can we do this together? We have a joint mutual obligation to prevent human rights and environmental impacts in our supply chain. I'm not just going to push it down, but let's collaborate on this together. So that's something to keep in mind when you're confronted with these kind of obligations in your contracts. That brings me to the final chapter, which is something that we need to talk about, and that is do the ESG disclosures obligations in the EU. The main one, you may have heard about this, and it's not specific for materials, but it has a huge impact because it applies to a lot of companies, is the Corporate Reporting Sustainability Directive, or CSRD. And I promise that this is the last directive that I'm going to talk about. But it is an obligation for a lot of European companies to report how environmental issues impact their business. For example, if you're close to a riverbank and due to climate change, the river overflows more frequently, then that is a risk for your company. On the other hand, you as a company may also have an impact on the climate, on human rights. You need to report on those impacts too. It's what we call double materiality. Again, the issue here is for basically on an annual basis to integrate your financial reporting and your sustainability reporting so that others can, there's maximum transparency on your efforts on sustainability. And the hope is that through this transparency on these efforts, that there is a push, an incentive to really do better. But of course, they need data. They need data to provide this report, because without data on climate, etc., you can't report on it. So again, expect in working with European companies a lot of these requests from European companies, and work with them because they need this information. I think I will pause there also to make sure that there's a little bit of room for questions, and otherwise the next speaker. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you, Jorian. Hauke, we have plenty of questions actually, but we have just 4 minutes for them. So if we can choose just 2 of them, and then you can write them down the answers in the chat box. So the first question would be, how can we stay updated on involving regulations for materials production and ensure we don't miss critical requirements? Is there any suggestions?
Yeah, I think one good address would be newsletters of European Chemical Agency, which is which is responsible for enforcing REACH, but also from the EU Commission if there are new product or materials initiatives. There are dedicated web pages where they post the latest updates. So that would be a good starting point, I guess.
Thank you. Jorian, do you have something to add? No.
No.
Good. Next question. What challenges might non-EU distributors face in providing emission data to EU customers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A lot of challenges, to be fair, because it's difficult to gather information on data. And a lot of European companies have now started to work on this. They've hired people especially for this purpose. They've tried this for a couple of years, and are now starting to understand how to collect these emission data. For others, it's new, and it's difficult. There is a lot of guidance out there online. Because we had a lot of soft reporting standards, not obligatory, but voluntary, that can help you, start somewhere. Okay, how do I calculate? There's also sectoral approaches. If you're active in a certain sector, okay, what is a way to calculate emissions in a certain sector, and ask those that the customers, if they ask for data, ask them for help, because it means that they are reporting on data as well, that they have someone working on the data, and they may have advice on how they calculate the data, and then you can make sure that your own methods are aligned with their methods, and that's obviously great.
And just a quick question, the last one. When entering a new market, what's the best way to understand local regulations? And should we always work with a local legal advisor focused on materials innovation? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand. So it's not purely about legal requirements. So you also will need to work with some technical experts in terms of materials. So that would be engineering teams that is aware of the requirements here. So the best case scenario would be that you have a technical advisor or someone in your team that is an engineer familiar with these requirements, and then have a law firm at hand that is specified in EU product compliance law that can then help with some specified questions. But you also definitely will need engineers that are aware of the requirements.
Thanks a lot for your answers. We still have 3 or 4 of them, but please answer them in chat if you still have time. It was absolute pleasure for us to have you today to talk about the legal and regulatory frameworks and all the essentials that we need to know. Thank you for being here today. And
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're moving forward. And now, dear participants, we are going to have like a live, oh, not that. Sorry. Yeah, we're going to have a real live discussion with one of the Ukrainian startup founders, with Yulia Beletska, and we'll talk with Yulia and explore the growth strategies that worked for them and how they are scaling to success. So, Yulia, nice to have you here today with us. Thank you for joining.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy to share our journey, which is still in progress. So I would say that success is somewhere along our way.
For sure, it's an ongoing thing. And just to get the audience to know you, can you share your latest wins and successes in scaling the Ukrainian product as a lab internationally, just for our audience to understand you and get to know a bit more?
Yeah, maybe quick also minute about what we do. We do packaging material to replace or substitute polystyrene or styrofoam or foam plastic. So basically that white fluffy thing that is normally protecting some products that you buy, TV sets, home appliances, perfumes, cosmetics, decor, and so on. And we do this with only 2 plant-based components. So that makes it absolutely natural and biodegradable. I always show the quick sample of the material, so it is easier to understand what we are trying to accomplish. And maybe what's been happening recently is that we developed our own technology to make sure that we can produce this material in quantities that are enough for the potential customers. But of course, this is all an ongoing process. So we do have a facility right now. It's like a pilot production line, and we are working towards increasing capacity of that. And along with that, we do have recurring customers who order packaging on a monthly basis. And on top of that, we ran a few few pilots with big corporations like L'Oreal, JTI, and Nespresso, and basically advancing with them on that. We also raised 1 million euros of funding so far. It was both private investments and public grants. Right now, we are opening our new round that is 2.5 million. Yeah, I would say this is like in a nutshell what we've been doing. So I just returned back from United States, where we introduced our material at the Consumer Electronics Show conference. So this kind of marks the new markets that we are entering this year. So of course, right now we are operating mostly in the European Union, and all the regulations that were mentioned or anticipation of those regulations, of course, makes it easier or makes it possible for us to promote our solution and actually start to work with those big companies because they are all looking for the solution. So I would say that if you have any solution in any type of the material right now, this is the best time to start. And I think one of the speakers also mentioned that right now is the best time to actually be able to work with those companies and like big corporations that are actually willing from their side to work together with startups and implement a new solution.
Yulia, thank you for such a broad explanation of your expertise and your achievements. We actually are very proud of you and of SLab being a Ukrainian product. Coming back to the history of the beginning of what were the first steps you took when starting SLab's internationalization journey so that you can share your insights?
Yeah, I mean, it was always the same that we didn't want to just do research and development for the sake of research and development. We always were going to the customers first, even when we had a very young and fresh product. But we wanted to gather the feedback as early as possible. And I think this kind of approach where we were not afraid to show something that is not 100% ready or a little bit raw to the potential customers. This helped us to get to our actual customer base and to work with early adopters. And then with those early adopters, we were able to advance the material and work on it together. So we were not developing something that we thought would be used. We were developing something that we knew would be used based on the feedback from the customers. So like this is again a very broad explanation, but what we did when we started to enter the European Union markets, of course, we started in Ukraine, we had Ukrainian customers, and then the war started. And I would say it's a very bad cause, but this kind of forced us to go to the European market, European Union market. We always knew that we have to do, but when the war actually started, the full invasion, then it was clear that it has to happen now, and we have to work on it already. So even though maybe we thought we were not ready, or we'd like to have more time before we could do that, we just had to go towards new markets. And this is what was happening. We were just going to different countries. We were looking into, again, regulations. We were looking into potential customers, if there are industries or companies who would be using our material, and we're just like targeting those countries. And then through accelerators, through network of those accelerators, through network of our own network, we were reaching out to those potential customers, potential partners in those countries. And that's how we were like approaching this. So I think this is a kind of very simple approach. We just like try to get to the low-hanging fruit and make sure that all the factors come together. So like make sure that this country has some type of regulations that would make it easier for you to sell your solution and to motivate, and those regulations normally motivate local companies to look for the solutions. And then we quickly found out that international companies and corporations are already looking into this cause like a lot, into the packaging specifically. And we started to look into the companies who do have some sustainability policy that actually has some statements around packaging and what are their goals in terms of the packaging. So this was our kind of approach, how we were trying to tackle those companies that you have this regulation, you have this policy, you have this internal policy that you would like to comply with. Here we are, that we could help you with that. Let's work together, let's collaborate and see how we can develop the material that could be used by you.
I know that a lot of startup founders are struggling with getting this first contact with the foreign markets, searching for some LinkedIn profiles that are relevant for them, or some friends who have some contacts in this. So what were the strategy and the approaches that you used, maybe some communication channels that you used and that worked best for you, and also in terms of reaching out to these huge clients that you have right now. So what was the steps that you took in order to reach out to them and to be heard by them?
I would say probably 4 channels if I take everything into consideration. The first channel was that we were part of few international European accelerators, and every time when we were entering those accelerators, we told them that we need this, this, and this. Are you able to provide this to us? And one of our needs or requirements towards those accelerators was, of course, introductions to the potential customers. So we had a very clear portrait of the potential customers. So you were saying we need this industry, this size, in these countries. If you know those, if you have a possibility among your network to introduce us to those, then we are going to go for it. So this is like the first channel, and there were many warm introductions to those companies that we wanted to get in touch with through the accelerators. Then the second channel was going to conferences, events, trade shows. At the beginning, those were more like startup conferences, but still, normally on those startup conferences, there are big companies that have their booth. So we were also targeting them, either just going physically to their booth. And yeah, on those booths, we were, of course, trying to pitch our solution. Also, those conferences normally have platforms where you can reach out to the visitors of the conference. So we were also using those platforms at the conferences. So like I would say that the other channel was events. And this helped us a lot in our case because we have a physical product. And it is much easier to explain what we are doing, what is it for, when you can give it to the hands of other person. Then the third channel was actually media coverage. We have a quite interesting, I would say, story for media. Since we are doing material, we are replacing something that everyone hates. Because no one likes really polystyrene. We just have to use it because there is no better solution, or there was no better solution. Then we have a female founder, we have point on climate tech. So all of these factors made us quite interesting for different media. So we had quite a few articles in several global international media outlets. We never paid for any of those. So this was all organic and free for us. And of course, this also then led to some leads generation who were sending messages to us, like trying to get in contact. And then the fourth channel, I would say the usual lead generation and then outreach to those leads. So we were using or still using several tools for sales automation, sales lead generation, where we again identify the target customers. Then we just get a database of those potential customers, and we have a sequence of emails, of LinkedIn outreach. So basically several campaigns that we run in order to get to our customers.
And with your experience now, if you were to launch a new product without like S-Lab name, what would be the steps that you would take? What would you do differently, but having your experience right now? Maybe do something faster, reach this channel faster, or
Yeah, I would definitely expand the team much faster. Because like for quite some time, it was just two of us as two founders doing everything. And of course, we were like reluctant to hire more people because we knew that this will, decrease our runway. And we thought we don't have enough funds for that. But as practice shows, is that once you hire people, you are actually have much more resources, and you can raise more, or you can work, or you can develop business development and increase sales faster. So I would say I would definitely hire people from the beginning, and maybe try to, if we wouldn't have funds, try to incentivize them with shares, with options, with something else other than salary, if there is no possibility for that. So definitely increase your team as fast as possible. Yeah, I mean, probably I still would like to become a professional and expert in all of those regulations that there are to actually help our customers, because sometimes they are also confused with, so what should they do and with what they should comply. So I would definitely like to do that, but this is so complex that I'm not sure if I ever will be able to get to that point. But my point is that if you are starting a startup in materials, just make sure that you have enough space to cover the regulations and to help educate your customers and to work with them also in this field, because yeah, this is a quite heavy topic. Let's see, I also had some third point, but it already slipped my mind.
And what was your first like hire when you decided to scale internationally? Was that the salesperson or the market research person or someone in business development or in tech team?
Yeah. Well, definitely we hired, like we simultaneously, when we started to expand, we simultaneously hired 4 people. And so basically grew from 2 to 6, which was triple. So we did hire both like engineer and business development and operational manager. So in our case, packaging is quite heavy operational business, you know, where there are orders that you have to fulfill. You need an accounting system, you need a billing system. So this why the operational manager was critical, but of course the business development was actually working. I hired a business developer who was working toward bringing new business. But till this day, I would say that I'm the main business developer in our team and the main salesperson. I think this comes very naturally from the founders to do that. So this is why I kind of hold this job till this day. Because you know your product the best and you're the big part of how it how has it been created and mission of it. And like since I have an opportunity to talk to many different people, to hear different opinions, I can also then give this or like explain this to our customers and like, you know, have a very wide, I would say, perception of things that happen in different types of markets or regulations or trends and so on.
And how did you decide which markets to enter first? Like, what was the criteria did you use to prioritize them? How did you approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think since we spoke with many potential customers right at the beginning, when we even didn't have like really the product that could be used, but like something that just could be touched and so basically we had samples of the material. Those people were already giving me some ideas of who could be our potential customer, and they were sharing their own experience, their knowledge. And I think based on this kind of first like data that we were able to get from those first early adopters or potential customers, we already knew or have had our theories who could be our potential customer. And we understood that we cannot sell this to any type of customer or any type of industry. This has to be a customer that is forced or either forced or has an internal motivation to switch, to transition to another type of the packaging, because it takes effort from them actually. So of course, naturally, we started to look into regulations very closely. So what are the countries that are the most regulated? What are the countries that already have those limitations or bans of polystyrene or styrofoam? Then of course, this is like a no-brainer. Since it is limited or banned or the ban is about to come, customers are naturally looking for something different that could help them to replace that. So these are like that's how we identified the first countries that are doing that. So of course, naturally, it was Nordic countries. Denmark is one of those that is like, I think, is towards sustainability a lot. And then if we were looking into the companies, we of course were searching for those who do have either some policies, internal policies regarding sustainability, or those who produce natural organic products already, and they do need packaging to help them emphasize the whole organic or natural nature of their products.
And the final question would be, can you share any unexpected lessons that you learned during the scaling process? And what's the kind of advice would you give to Ukrainian startups aiming to scale in materials industry?
Well, I think my advice would be only positive, that I think right now is the best time to develop anything. I would definitely say that do not wait until you have an ideal material or ideal product. you can still develop this while you are in discussions with the potential customers or with your target audience. So just make sure that you go outside as early as possible and that you are visible and that you raise awareness about what you are doing. This is the first thing. And then have a very simple explanation of what are you doing, like in a simple words that any 5-year-old child can understand. I know this is a very simple advice, but this helps a lot. And when we can actually explain this to anyone what we are doing, this helps us to engage much more people and then get lot more connections, more meaningful conversations, and then people immediately understand if they cannot work with us because they don't have any, they know who to introduce us to.
Yulia, thank you so much for your time and for your
Sure,
commitment into the workshop. We appreciate your insights, and good luck with scaling and developing your product further internationally.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good luck to everyone in this workshop.
Thanks. It was Yulia Biletska from S-Lab, a Ukrainian startup who's scaling internationally. And right now, it is my pleasure to move forward and to introduce you to our next speaker, who is Antonis Palidis. He's a senior business development manager at EAT Raw Materials, and he will talk today about unlocking opportunities in raw materials, and he will help you do that, unlocking the opportunities. So, Antonis, pleasure that you've joined us. I'll stop sharing my screen, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Anastasia. Thank you for having us over. And I appreciate, I don't see the counterparts, so the participants. I assume it's a big grain ecosystem and addressing this to your startup ecosystem. And I'm very happy to be around grain ecosystem again. In the past, we have had different rounds of collaboration, if you wish, between our organization and the Ukraine ecosystem, in the level of a startup or even in the level of large industries. So with that being said, I will share my screen slowly. Okay.
It's great. Just if you can do a full share screen.
Okay, so you see the presentation, right?
Yeah, we see the presentation, but with
Okay, so I will make it full screen. Yeah, I'm not using Zoom much, so please bear with me. I hope now it's a full screen and you can see it properly. Okay, great. I don't see you, so Anastasia, please, if something pops up as a question in between my presentation, please raise your voice because I don't see while sharing the full screen. So I'm here to, I follow the last part of Julia. So I would say the good part of having the journey with a startup. And I'm coming from the other side of a fence, as the enabling force, an organization that puts, if you wish, this type of ingredients in place so that we support early stage startups or scale-ups or even large organizations to grow further. So I'm coming from EAT Raw Materials, which is an organization, a European organization. I'm going to tell a bit more later. And mainly I'm going, for the sake of today's audience, I'm going to present my function, which is the access to finance function, as it's called. Basically the part where we invest and we support across the board our portfolio of startups and large projects to grow with our money, with our investors' money, and of course with the enabling network that we have in place. So already opening up the floor, I will start a bit with what we are and who we are. What is EAT Raw Materials, if you wish. It's a European Institute of Innovation Technology. This is what EIT stands for. So by default, in our genes, in our DNA, if you wish, we have innovation, and we apply innovation in different type of pillars. We apply innovation in education parts. We apply innovation in the working force. We apply innovation in the startup scene. We apply innovation in large collaboration and big collaboration partnership and projects. So this is part of our gene. So we have a kind of broader, if you wish, activity portfolio than the one that I'm going to present today. But I'm going to focus, as stated at the beginning, only to what is relevant for the startup and and small, medium, and large enterprises today. In a nutshell, who we are and what we are. We claim, and this is not a statement, but this is a validated statement, but we are the leading knowledge and innovation community network partnership in the raw materials value chain. What is raw materials for us and what is defined? It's not, if you interpret it, if you wish, in your local language, it's something a bit broader. You know, it might touch even agri-food. It might even touch different type of areas on the raw materials. From our side, we have defined raw materials only, metals, minerals, and the whole value chain across the board. And this is what you see here. And advanced materials that substitute one way or the other, metals or minerals in different industrial use cases. So this is who we are. This is what the raw material stands for us, and this is what is relevant. What is relevant for us, what is not. So yeah, agri-food is not relevant for us. Tire industry is not relevant for us, etc., even though it is defined, it falls within the cracks of raw materials. But anything with metals, minerals, and advanced materials, it's, we have open doors for you to discuss. So we are a partnership. We have regular partners of above 300 members. Who are these? They are institutions coming from the whole triangle of innovation, which is defined for us from academia, so universities basically, RTOs, research centers, and of course industry. And these 300 members are coming from this triangle, and each one represents institutions, the big institutions in Europe, and they are they're part of our partnership. On top of that, we have the ERMA partnership. ERMA, and I'm going to talk a bit more later on. It's the European Raw Materials Alliance partnership, where basically European Commission has mandated us to run this initiative in order to secure the raw materials undisrupted provision, if you wish, or supply to Europe, to enable its value chains and industrial value chains, if you wish. And when I'm going, I will stop there on the political, if you wish, side and how we are formulated, but you can sense it now with the different nationalization, if you wish, and with the dynamics that is happening now with Trump into play, but with different kind of national dynamics happening in Europe and across the globe, that this is becoming more and more apparent, how to secure the basis, which is the raw materials for flourishing and enabling the industries, if you wish, in Europe in the near and the longer future. And on top of that, we have support in that we have, above in our portfolio, if you wish, or in our support belt, I would put it this way, above 600 startups. I will make a distinction later on out of these 600 startups, how they kind of cascade further into our support level. And then you see what I defined as value chain in the raw material sector, how this starts. You know, it starts from technologies applying to exploration, which is basically technology screening and looking out for deposits. And here you see, it can be drones, it can be different type of geophysical technologies, etc., etc. It can be technologies on the mining side. It can be technologies on the processing, going further to the value chain, downstream, on the recycling side, on the circular economy. Still, please, because circular economy is a broad topic, reform the structure around metals and minerals, circular economy, and substitution, the advanced material that was kind of mentioned. That's in a nutshell about an organization. I'm going to focus a bit more, stated, from my function, from access to finance function. what we do and what we how we support you. I already stated what we do. So we support you across the board, not only with capital, but with access to the services which are important, that was mentioned by Julia as well, to help you grow. And if you fit into our, if you wish, very niche market on the raw materials as it has been defined, then most likely everything is within our capability, if you wish. So access to capital, so people with appetite on the raw material sector, access to capital from our side. So I will state a bit more later. So we have money to invest directly from our side. Access as well to to the outside enabling forces for you, which at the beginning might be customers, collaborators to develop further together your technology or to validate, you name it. So this is basically what we do. You know, we have all these kind of ingredients. And if you wish, this is how we have structured the critical pillars for a startup, scale up, or industry. We provide investment, so money that we have from our side, and tickets that we offer up to 2.5 million directly in cases of large projects. Even on collaboration projects, we can go up to 5 million. So there you collaborate with different other partners of ours, and you can go on collaboration project with up to 5 million requests. We support you with capital raising. So it's not only the money that we put on the table, but when your journey begins to grow, the request for raising capital is growing more and more. So on this journey, we have developed our own portfolio of investors who have direct appetite on the sector. So they are our collaborators, and we can leverage this capital, of course, upon discussion and negotiation and interest into the case. And last but not least is the network, which is the enabling force across the board, across the whole journey. Let it be collaborators, as stated, let it be access to customers, let it be different specific requests on a case-by-case basis from the startups. So the first part is, the critical. Always money is the king, as we say. Always access to investment is something critical in the journey of a startup, especially in the early stages. From our side, we offer this, if you wish, risk capital from our side, and we offer it into medium, not very early stage startups, but medium, close to pre-seed to seed stage startups. We offer up to 500,000 in order, through a program which is called Booster, in order to develop the technology or to boost their market outreach or to make a proof of concept, you name it. So it's a bottom-up approach. You come with a project and we evaluate if we want to fund it with 500,000, and then this is translated from our side into equity position. Going further, if you are at the stage where you're a scale-up, still we have Booster where we apply and we come into play with bigger ticket, where there we offer 1.5 million from our investment. And usually we are opting up. In this case, we have certain rules to, what scale up is defined. We want to see companies that have TRL, high TRL, so above 7, 8. We want companies to see that they have already traction in the market, so CRL 8. And we want to see that there is already a revenue generation the last 1 or 2 years of above 200,000. So this is how a scale up is defined, and preferably we want to go on a joint round with other VCs. And from our side, we can go up to 1.5 million. Last but not least, it's the large projects. So it might be not applying to the startup at this point, but it might applying later on where you grow full, if you wish, and you go on a stage where you open up a plant, where it's going to be an investment request of above 50 million or 100 million, then we offer tickets on this point up to 2.5 million. But this again has very specific target group. I'm going to share after, as we speak. This is what I described is basically our key funding program. It's called ERMA Booster Call, and it's going to open this week, so by end of this week, and I will share it with Anastasia. I don't have a website now to share, but when it's open, I will share it with Anastasia so that this diffuses the information to the group.
Perfect.
Okay, so next one, okay, it's good if you offer money, but it doesn't move the needle when you request that when you want to go on a scaling phase and you want 5 or 10 million, you offer 1.5, there is a gap. How am I going to cover this gap? No problem. From our side, we have as well, this capacity in-house with experienced bankers, with experienced VCs, VC investment managers, and we have access to a dedicated investors portfolio where we can support you to funnel and supplement this picture with access to outside capital. So this is what we do as well on top of what was mentioned, leveraging additional and our collaborators' money. And going further from the startup scene, the large projects, you see here that, the European Raw Materials Alliance, it was formulated, as stated, from the European Commission, and it's mainly to bring back to life, if you wish, the mining industry of Europe, and in a sustainable way, and as well to bring back or to develop and cultivate further the capacity and the knowledge that we have on the recycling side and on the processing side. So these are the main focus areas, if you wish, of the European Raw Materials Alliance. We're looking for big projects on this regard. As stated, they need somehow to contribute with quite an incremental impact on delivering on the gap that we have as European Union on different critical metals, as it is called. And I'm bringing here, for instance, some metals that are called for the green transition, which is the lithium, one of the metals that it is, it's a new gold, if you wish, that it is called. It's going on different battery technologies, and it's something that we rely on different countries, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to tell you, all different metals, but I want you just to get a bit of the picture of what the European Raw Materials Alliance is. I think I have gone already through that. It's what I call the IRMA booster call, and you see what we kind of looking for. It's a bit broader, but I think I have touched it already. What fits into the raw materials space, and there are, of course, some other eligibility aspects that we want to see. We want to see engagement. So if you're going to raise money, you will see that most of the VCs, 80% or 70-20%, are going to focus on their final decision on the founding team. So how strong, how engaging is the managing team? So we want to see engagement, 100% engagement of the team. And we have some other eligibility criteria. So you have to be in EU or associated countries. It goes without saying that Ukraine falls within this cracks. So we're very happy to talk to you if you have something of interesting technology on this regard. What we offered, again stated, we offer up to 1.5 million on the startup scene, on the pre-seed up to 500,000, on the startups that are on the scale-up phase, so late seed, if you wish, or pre-series A, 1.5 investment. On top of that, we are not standing, still, if you wish, on our investment and just monitor what is happening and following up on your back. It's the contrary. We stand side by your side, excuse me, and we are an active investor. So we offer value-added services to support you grow your company. So we hear you, we echo what is the need, and most likely, as I told you, if you fit within our niche market, it is one phone call away from us, to give you access to what is kind of needed. And this is the access to network that is mentioned and the services as well. So we are a startup powerhouse. You saw some numbers at the beginning, above 600 startups supported. In the raw material space, specifically because we have a different type of programs as the raw materials, but in the raw material space, we have dedicated above 400 startups supported throughout our program since 2016. Lately, we are becoming a bit more active on the VC scene, and we offer our investment in return of equity. And this is how we have an active portfolio as we speak of above 40 startups. And through this program, we're going to enlarge it. And as well, through our investment, which you can see that up to now we have invested above 100 million to the startup only. If we talk a bit broader as an organization, we have invested across the board in everything, in every activity on the north of above half a billion. And we're going to consume an additional $500 million until the end of 2029 to 2030. On top of our own money that is mentioned, we leverage as well. So what we have seen is that almost we create a 10 multiple potential to the outside regular VC market, where they invest or they have invested up to today additional 450 million investments into our startup. So what we do, if you wish, is meaningful, and the startups that are coming out of our powerhouse, they leverage and they create a multiple of minimum 4 times of the money that they have raised and continue their journey. If you want to keep some message. So very fast, one of the success cases, you can see different type of stages, different type of companies. Don't take it as an isolated example. And if you don't see yourself fitting in this picture, it doesn't mean that you don't fit as a whole. One of the big cases, this is Mag Resources. Basically, one of the key gaps in European Commission is European Union. Is there, excuse me, the rare earth elements, which is a critical source for the green transition. For instance, here you see the wind turbines, and in general, the permanent magnets that contain rare earth elements. It goes on the cars, in the wind turbines, and many other electronic applications, which is critical. And one of these companies, Mag Resource, they are in the scaling phase, and they're going to open up one of the few, if you wish, permanent magnet recycling plants, which is going to be very critical for the European Union state for their rare earth, for the access to rare earth elements. And from our side, we were part of their journey through different type of investments since the early days. So now is the moment that they capitalize, if you wish, the risk capital that we have taken from the beginning. So this is not the full startup portfolio, but you get to see that it's not only what was presented before as a success case, but it can go much beyond, and different type of companies and levels that are going into the 6 pillars, if you wish, or the 6 stages of the value chain. Now, on the scale-ups, I mentioned already that through the booster, we support them as well with direct investment of 1.5 million. But we have an additional program, which we call internally upscaling or Kava project. You might see it like this, but it's something that it's internal, if you wish, lingo. But at the end of the day, it's innovation, upscaling, collaborative project. So you partner up with some of our partners, which might be your proof of concept customer in there, which might be your end user, which might be your collaborator to develop some IP along with your technology, you name it. So you partner up with partners and you bring your project into this upscaling, and you can claim or request, if you wish, all together as a consortium between 2.5 and in exceptional cases, we can go up to 5 million, but this is doable if it is a sizable and meaningful project that was presented to us. So this is an additional way to support scale-ups. One of these projects coming from Croatia. This is coming from a company that is called Docking. So Docking is a company that that came into us. They have succeeded on with their robots. They have succeeded in a specific space, and they wanted to transfer this know-how into the mining industry. Okay, and through a collaborative project between the companies that you see below, so Probotica, University of Zagreb, and ZAC, they have created a 6 million project, out of which we have invested 3.6, and the rest are coming from own investment from Docking and the consortium. And this is a way how we invest, if you wish, on scale-ups. And out of this project, as we speak, we have a spin-off company where EAT Raw Materials is becoming part of the shareholder, converting its position, and of course supporting the project and the steps ahead with additional investment if need be, and additional broking services or connecting services to make things happen and take the business further. So the European Raw Materials Alliance, I think I have a kind of expanded quite vividly. What I would like to mention there is that European Commission and Ukraine, they have developed under the umbrella of ERMA, they have developed a collaboration in high level, in ministry level and presidential even level from your end, and from our level, the highest level of European Commission, so the President of Commission. But unfortunately, due to the situation of the war, this was, I would say, put on hold, but it has not taken the form that we anticipated. And one of the critical elements has been the strength that Ukraine has on the mining and processing space. And we are working and collaborating with different industries there, and we keep the discussion active even at this point, and we want to see, hopefully, with coming to a conclusion of the situation, to see these projects flourishing further, because your country is very strong on this regard. So I'm going to share a couple of examples, what does it mean, ERMA and projects of this regard. So you see here a couple of the projects that we support. Novana on the one side, which is a vanadium recovery from slate slags company. It's connected with a listed company in Canada, and they spin out their business in Finland. Aside the money that we put, as stated, from our side, so we have put 500,000 to them, and now we have put through a different program an additional 500,000. We support them as well on raising the 160 million equity that they want to do. We have collaborators, of course, which is the Swedish bank, which is called SEB, but you understand that our support is much broader than the investment. It's much more, if you wish, important on the other sides, and we follow specific, if you wish, process and approach on how we support these projects, which we call value chain approach. So we find different type of collaborators which are meaningful for the whole end-to-end project, and we try to bring them as well inside the equity position or equity risk. The other project is El Moto. So this is a tungsten mine in Spain, and this is very advanced, and it's going to be spinned out and open up as we speak. Or if you wish, shortly in the upcoming 1 or 2 years, and we're supporting them as well on raising funds, and this is very well positioned, and it's going to materialize most likely. And this is this is a different type of project that we support, so mining projects. So the capital raising, I think I have mentioned quite extensively what we kind of do and what we do. So invest from our side is the one part, but we support as well the equity, the debt. So we are very well situated and connected with different parties on the investment side. So bankers, export agencies, VCs, different type of offices that they have their own money, family offices, pension offices, you name it, different kind of funds, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's not a list to be exhaustive, but it's a list that has been filtered down with interest into the specific sector again. The other part is, of course, because we have very good collaboration at different, our legs very well positioned in European Commission. We have access and we support as well on some grants and subsidies, if you wish. And I can mention a few here, which might be EIC, which might be the Innovation Fund, etc., etc. This is a broader discussion, but this is something that we do on top of our core business. So here you can see already some names, and I assume that you can recognize the big banks, so ING, Deutsche Bank, and other players. You can recognize as well the EAC that was mentioned, the EIB, EBRD. It's not here, but all this kind of NEIF, all this kind of connected with European Commission money and structural players. They're part of the equation. But as well, you see some, if you wish, CVCs or corporate interest in investing in such projects. LG Chem, you see Finindus, Anglo-American, you name it. So this is not exhaustive list, just to give you an indication. And as we speak as well, there has been an announcement for 3 big funds in Germany, in Italy, and in France. And this is where you see Infravia, KfW, which are the players, and CDP, which are the players behind it. So there is a lot of, if you wish, movement and momentum at this point. Because the opportunity is there, so the money always comes and follows up. So the opportunities are growing. So I would like to close as well from from the startup side, from our side. What is the value is the team, and it's not exhaustive because we're constantly kind of enlarging our team in order to deliver and support the big portfolio that we have, and we are seasoned, if you wish, investment managers and experienced people on the raw materials sector and space. And we are there to unite forces and support projects coming hopefully from Ukraine, but broader from across Europe, to bring everything together into realization and growth of your business. So Anastasia, I think this is more or less from my side on the presentation side, and I'm open for any questions. Yes, please. Yeah. So let's stop sharing.
Yeah, stop searching. Stop the presentation.
Okay, how do I do that?
Sharing.
Okay.
There should be like a red button saying stop sharing.
Okay, now I find okay. I haven't used Zoom since COVID, so yeah.
So we have quite a few questions. First of all, this was an early question, and I'm sure you've partially covered this, but what kind of support does the Access to Finance team provide for entrepreneurs and businesses that we may apply to or get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the first is what was mentioned already. So capital raising, access to capital, which is not coming from us, if this is the request. The second, is if you become part of our equity portfolio, then you have either a member from our team on the board, which knows the sector and supports actively the company. So it's not there to observe and monitor the situation, but it's more there to support and take requests and take action within our community. And this boils down to the regulars, if you will. So access to customers, our network partnership that was mentioned. It's usually people that they want to buy your technology. Okay, and for us, it is one phone call away. So we can bridge and make this kind of connection. Access to, if you wish, to knowledge. So we have within our community, again, if you want to validate bits and parts, if you're in early stage, there is a know-how, there is a knowledge where we can support you, if you wish, with our community. The services can be broad on this regard. We don't have dedicated expert list at this point where we do, let's say, IP support, if you wish, how you sell your market, etc., etc. Usually, you take this support from one of us, one of our the investment managers, which act your direct contact point, which act as your support in such consultation, if you wish, on the different fronts and needs for the company. But yeah, I would, if you wish, sum it, but not restricted there. And then it's coming on a case-by-case basis. In our application, we ask, what do you need from your side to grow? And then this is how we want to structure as well, our services on the dedicated need from the company.
And what is the journey that the startup founder should take in order to reach out to you, in order to become a part of the portfolio? Or
yeah, so at this point, I would say there are two ways, or yeah, there might be more ways, but at this point, I would say there are two ways. First, if you when we open up the program, we will communicate it. If you feel that you're relevant, then the application is going to be open. We can talk, and then submitting an application is the bare minimum of starting examining. If the money is what you seek, if the company's money is what it seeks, start the journey, if you wish, of being evaluated and being examined as a prospect case. The second is, if they don't want to go there, and if a company just wants to raise money, then in this case they can reach out to us, and we have a dedicated service package on this regard, where we formulate the need and start supporting you on the investment strategy that we're going to set together, and reach out to different investors and support across the board. So in this regard, we get a kind of a success fee in case of support to raise the money and the amount through our collaboration and through our connection and matchmaking that we have with investors. And we are not practicing it very much, that we have a total outside dedicated service, meaning if it is not part of our portfolio that we have invested, for access to network or customers, but we're always happy to discuss this opportunity as well. And the last is we have our flagship event, which is happening this year, if I'm not mistaken, between 13th and 16th of May, where we offer a dedicated, we call it Innovation Village, where different companies present their business. And there we have above 1,000 people coming from the raw material sector. And it is people who are from the corporate environment, so potential customers to talk to. There are people who are from the European Commission. So in case you want to reach out and find out what are additional opportunities and discussion to talk with in the highest level from European Commission. Investors. So we have an investor day where you potentially selected that you can present your case in front of a panel of investors. And I would say, in matchmaking one-to-one meetings for the companies to talk with different participants. So I would say the low-hanging opportunities, or if I can restrict it into 3 only, it's this.
Thank you for such a broad answer and a detailed explanation on what should startups do. A few more questions that we have. Are there specific strategies or collaborations that startups should explore to strengthen their financial readiness and attract investment?
There is no simple answer to that question. It depends on the state that you are. It depends on the money that you look for, and it's a matter of a complex discussion. I can tell you what we look for from our side. So excellence, we call it the first part, which accounts 20% of our total 100 valuation. Basically, product. You need to have a kind of a product and a competitive edge to the market, and how you can protect it. It doesn't have to be ready, but it has to have some kind of legs and a USP before you reach out to the market. You need to have two important elements, which for us account the most, above 50%. Team, as I mentioned, it's very critical. The team capacity, complementarity. Do you have what you need in your team? Business skills, not only technical skills. Do you have a team which is doers and can make things happen? Do you have a team that is trainable? So even if they're not ready, they're willing to learn and they're willing to accept and coachable, if you wish, and they're willing to accept to be coached by different kind of mentors and coaches to bring the company always one step above. I would say these are the two critical, and the last is the market. So market and finance, there are two sides on this coin. Market is, do you address a significant market? And thinking in this terms, if you're looking for 200, 300, $500,000 investment, and after 5 years, you promise you're addressing a market that after 5 years, you're going to deliver, 1 or 2 million revenue, then you understand that this is not something that is going to be, very appealing to someone put money on you. So it has to be something that will return multiples to your investor. Okay, so and again, this is not absolute because it's different stages. On the early stages, there are only people who are angel investors willing to put money to take the risk, even these elements are not in place. I'm talking of the stages of pre-seed and beyond, if you wish. Mm-hmm. And the last part is finance. How well do you know and do you control your finance, your burn rate, your cash flow? The triplet of finance, the income statement, your balance sheet, and the cash flow. So all these elements should be very well controlled, and you need to be aware what you're doing and where you're going. So I would sum it there, but again, it's a broader discussion.
Mm-hmm. I think you answered the next question with answering this question. The question was, what criteria does IIT prioritize when evaluating funding applications from raw material startups? So basically,
I think that's and the two additional is impact and the project itself. What you propose, but these two account for 20% of the total evaluation. The rest are 80%.
The next question is from Maxime. We are the producers of systems in the field of automatization, but we would need the raw material to produce the final product. May there be a cooperation in this regard?
So it's not what we do. This is going more on trading metals, and this is not something that we kind of do. We're looking more technologies that benefit the sector, the metal production value chain, if you wish, or the mineral production value chain, and not technologies that need raw materials. So I would say more or less all technologies or all industrial value chains, they need materials and metals, but this is not what we do, trading metals. This goes a bit beyond our capacity.
And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe there can be some kind of collaboration between the startup who is developing something in the raw material field and this automatization system. There can be a match, but it's not specifically a raw material to produce, right? So you can find matches in collaboration between similar fields, but not directly help produce something.
By all means. So if the startups usually they don't produce themselves directly, but they might bring incremental or more or broader innovations into the producers. So it might be IT solutions where they come in and they support to observe and bring more efficiency into the mining space, for instance. It might be drones, which are coming and and offering mapping or you name it. So, of course, it's something that, you know, if you have a technology proven, if you wish, in a space and you feel that can be transferred into our sector, this is what we look for as well. But yeah, they don't need to be the producers. This goes mainly on the ERMA projects that I mentioned. On the startup, it's more innovation. On the ERMA projects, big projects, mining, recycling, processing, these are the producers. On the other part, it's innovators.
Thank you. I think, Maxim, you understood what Antonis means. And the last question is from Maria. Are there particular tools or resources from EIT that can help startups track and align with EU regulatory and market trends in raw materials? And before you answer, by the way, we had a panelist today whom we asked a question about where do they look for trends, whom do they read for expert resources, and they said EIT raw materials, and we're like, we'll have Antonis telling us about the EIT. So if you have some questions, please.
Yeah, so I assume that the trends we mean about market trends, right? So yeah, in terms of market trends, from our side, we do have some business intelligence and some market trends, but it depends. It depends on the commodity, it depends on the metal, and it depends. So we do have many to offer and many sources to offer, and we do have knowledge. And we do have extensive, if you wish, market analysis from our side, but not for all materials. So yeah, if Maria can answer on specific what's he kind of looking for, I can tell you if we have it or not. But even if we don't have it, I can tell you for sure that we know where we can get it and how we can address you to find it. But yeah, within our organization, by all means, for rare earth elements and paramagnetic magnets, we have published a market trend and actions that to be done. On the defense industry connected with the raw materials, we have done the equivalent, etc., etc. On the mining, it's a bit more complex. There are out there market resources and market trends, but it goes commodity to commodity. Some we can cover, some we cannot. Yeah, I hope this answers the question.
Is there any publicly available resources? I don't know, some channel where you can read the latest scientific approaches in raw materials, etc. Is there anything developed by the EIT raw materials, or maybe you can advise on something that where you are searching for, inspiration, knowledge, and etc.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that we do this specific part, from our side. There are different sources out there, Anastasia, and there are different kind of nodes to respond to this question, because there's a market, there is a trend that you mentioned through literature, etc., etc. One good source where people can address as a starting point is the RMIS from European Commission. It's Raw Materials Intelligence or Information Service, if I recall correctly, where there is the single contact or the single hub, if you wish, from European Commission, where we find it as well from our side with different resources, where it goes material per material, the different parts and what it was mentioned. So, market outlook, supply, demand, etc. And this is how it's direct, and then it's a case by case, so it will not respond to someone that has a drone technology if this is needed or not, but it will give an indication if someone wants something specific on a specific commodity.
And what about some educational activities? Do you do such stuff?
Yeah, by all means, by all means. So as I did at the beginning, one, you have a counterpart. So my colleague that runs the education element is called Anastasia as well. So Anastasia Arnhold. There are a lot of things happening on this space. As we speak, we have some open calls where we want to develop different large MBA and different other type of large education programs for the skill force of Europe. So not for the training force of Europe. So it's going on the people that are working and not mainly on the education. We have as well master, which we call labeled master courses, which is for students and PhDs. So mainly we focus there. And as we speak, we are in discussions and to develop an academy, which is going to be a raw materials academy and advanced materials academy. So more, if you wish to be presented on this direction. I'm not the expert, but my colleague Anastasia is very exciting always to talk about it.
And our participants can find it in the raw materials, EIT raw materials website. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in EITrawmaterials.eu, you can find bits and parts of information and always the people to address. And I'm always happy, if you're looking something, to direct you to the dedicated person within our organization that can tackle or answer to your question.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your expertise, for sharing the insights on how to get investment and how EIT as a very powerful source can support startups and innovators going through this path. So thank you for joining us today and dedicating your time.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. The pleasure is always mine. I am happy to present to startups because that's a passion, and I'm always happy to support them as well going forward. So I'm happy to see the follow-up, and from your side in Ukraine, please let's keep this alive, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Dear participants, we are finalizing our workshop, and we would just love to remind you that our next open call deadline is on the 27th of January. It's for P2, P5, so please apply for the programs, and this is your chance and your opportunity if you haven't done it yet. Here is the slide where it shows our communication channels. So we have plenty of resources and workshops, educational materials, useful highlights and insights that we've prepared for you from Ukrainian side, from the EU side, from international experts all over the Europe and the world. So please follow up on YouTube. You can find all the market discovery workshops that have already been done where you can find how to navigate a CEE region, UK, Sweden, and so on and so far. So there is plenty of things to explore on the YouTube, as well as in LinkedIn and other resources. You can find just updates on what is coming next, and just my personal advice, subscribe to a newsletter, because in newsletter we are sharing also opportunities from our partners and from related kicks from some opportunities that we have around the ecosystem inside Ukraine and outside of it. So don't miss your opportunity to be connected and to find your way to scale and to succeed. This was Anastasia Lubisheva from Vacuum Deep Tech Acceleration, and as a part of industry-specific workshop, materials of blending workshop, and all of the partners of Seeds of Bravery. Thank you for being today with us. If you have any questions, you can ask them to our mentors and to our experts via LinkedIn. We've already shared their profiles in our latest post. Like and share. And if you loved this workshop. If it was useful for you, please share it on social media, tag our experts. They would love to hear back from you, from our Ukrainian community, on how they were helpful to you. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful and peaceful evening to you. Bye.